Somewhere inside the Tips Arena in Linz, Austria, a 20-year-old from the Philippines is about to walk onto indoor clay against 3,000 Austrian fans who desperately want her to lose. And the strangest part of this story is not that Alex Eala is the favorite. The strangest part is that 12 months ago, she could barely survive a single round on this surface. Let that sit for a second. Because what is about to unfold on the Terra Batu of Linz is not simply a first-round match at a WTA 500 tournament. It is, in every meaningful sense, a referendum on one of the most dramatic ascents in recent women's tennis. A referendum on whether a young woman who trained at the Rafael Nadal Academy, who won a junior Grand Slam singles title at the US Open as a teenager, who climbed to a career-high ranking of world number 29 just 3 weeks ago, can finally do the one thing that has eluded her since she turned professional. She has to prove she can play on clay. And standing in her way on center court is Julia Grabher. Now, Grabher is not a name that will headline global sports news. She is ranked 87 in the world. She is 29 years old. She has never won a WTA singles title. Her 2026 season record entering Linz is a miserable 3 wins against 8 losses, and she has not played a competitive match in almost a month. On paper, this should be straightforward for Eala. On paper, the rankings gap of over 40 places should settle this in 2 quick sets. But tennis is not played on paper. Tennis is played on court, in front of real crowds, under real pressure, and Julia Grabher has something tonight that rankings cannot measure. She is home. She has 3,000 voices in an arena she knows intimately, an arena where she has competed since 2019, an arena where the air itself seems to carry the weight of Austrian expectation. Grabher has been playing in Linz for 7 years. She earned her first wildcard here. She has walked through these corridors season after season. And even though she has never advanced past the opening round in the main draw at this tournament, not once in 5 attempts, the crowd does not care about that. They see an Austrian jersey. They see one of their own. And they will make noise. That crowd factor matters more than most analysts are willing to admit. Think about what it takes for a 20-year-old to stand at the baseline while thousands of people cheer every unforced error she makes. Think about the psychology of hearing a roar after you double fault. Think about the loneliness of being the visitor, the outsider, the one person in the building nobody is pulling for. These are the invisible pressures that transform straightforward matches into dogfights. But before we unpack the tactical chess match that awaits, we need to understand how Alex Eala arrived at this particular crossroads. Because her journey to Linz is not a straight line. It is a labyrinth of breakthroughs and setbacks, of breathtaking highs and cruel lows, and the clay surface is the thread that ties every frustration together. Rewind to 2025. Eala entered the clay season that year with cautious optimism. She was still building her professional resume, still climbing the rankings, still learning what it meant to compete week after week on tour. And clay crushed her. In the WTA 125 Oeiras Ladies Open in Portugal, she lost in the round of 16. At the Madrid Open, a WTA 1000 event, she went out in the round of 64. At the Italian Open and the French Open, the 2 biggest clay tournaments outside of Madrid, she was eliminated in the round of 128. Her clay record for the entire 2025 season was a dismal 2 wins and 4 losses. If you zoom out even further, the numbers are staggering. Since the start of 2022, Eala has lost 14 of 19 matches on clay across all levels. That is a win rate of roughly 26%. On a surface where patience, spin tolerance, physical endurance, and tactical flexibility are non-negotiable, Eala simply could not find her footing. Now contrast that with everything else she accomplished. On hard courts, the Filipina transformed into a completely different player. She reached the semi-final of the ASB Classic in Auckland in January, beating Donna Vekic in a 3-set thriller and rolling through Petra Marcinko and Magda Linette before falling to Sinew Wang in another 3-set war. She made the quarterfinals in Abu Dhabi, where she toppled Zeynep Zonmez and Alexandra Sasnovich before running into the wall that is Ekaterina Alexandrova. In Dubai, she produced one of her finest stretches of tennis, defeating Hailey Baptiste, 6th-seeded Jasmine Paolini, and Sorana Cîrstea before losing to 3rd-seeded Coco Gauff in the quarterfinals. Then came the Sunshine Double. At Indian Wells, she beat Diana Yastremska and Gauff, the latter retiring at 6-2, 2-0 down, before Linda Noskova dismantled her in the 4th round. At Miami, she overcame Laura Siegemund in a marathon 3-setter and dispatched Magda Linette before Karolina Muchova ended her run with a comprehensive 6-0, 6-2 drubbing. The pattern is obvious. On hard courts, Eala is a top 30 player in the world. She is aggressive, she is fearless, she hits through the court, and she competes with a ferocity that has already produced wins over Grand Slam champions and top 10 opponents. But on clay, the aggression gets muted. The ball sits up. The points get longer. The geometry changes. And Eala, who learned her craft at the Nadal Academy on the red dirt of Mallorca, has paradoxically struggled to translate that training into professional results on the surface, where she grew up. This is the central tension of her Linz debut. This is why this match against Grabher is so loaded with meaning. It is not about beating a player ranked 40 places below her. It is about confronting a flaw in her game that has persisted for years. It is about stepping onto clay and proving to herself, not to the world, not to the Filipino fans watching at 5 in the morning back in Manila, not to the analysts and pundits, but to herself, that she belongs on this surface. So, what does she actually need to do to win? Let us talk tactics. Eala's game on hard courts is built around early ball striking, particularly off the forehand wing. She loves to take the ball on the rise, redirect pace, and finish points inside the first 4 or 5 shots of a rally. Her serve is functional rather than dominant. She has hit only 15 aces all season, but her return game can be devastating. She has converted 39.3% of her break-point opportunities in 2026 and has won 36.7% of return games, which is a respectable clip for someone ranked in the 40s. The problem on clay is that her early ball timing gets disrupted by the higher bounce and the slower surface speed. The ball kicks up more. It arrives later. It spins differently. Players who thrive on clay tend to stand further behind the baseline, build points patiently, and use heavy topspin to push opponents into uncomfortable positions. Eala's natural instinct is to step inside the baseline and attack. On clay, that instinct can backfire because the margin for error shrinks when the ball is bouncing shoulder high and you are trying to rip a forehand winner on the rise. For Eala to beat Grabher, she needs to resist the temptation to play her hard court game on clay. She needs to accept that some rallies will go 12, 15, 18 shots. She needs to use her movement, which is underrated and has improved significantly over the past year, to stay balanced in longer exchanges. And she needs to find her forehand depth early. Not power. Depth. If she can consistently land her forehand within 2 feet of the baseline, she can push Grabher behind the court and create short balls to attack. But if she goes for too much too early, if she tries to bludgeon winners through the heavy clay court air, she will spray errors and hand free points to an opponent who will gladly accept them. Grabher, for her part, knows exactly what she is. She is a clay court specialist trapped in a career that has never quite fulfilled its promise. Her only career final came on clay, in Rabat in 2023, where she lost to Lucia Bronzetti. She holds 2 challenger titles on the surface and 15 ITF clay court titles. Her WTA-level record splits dramatically by surface: 14 wins on clay, 5 on hard, and 0 on grass. She is not fast. She is not powerful. But she is smart, she is stubborn, and she understands the geometry of clay court tennis with an instinct born from thousands of hours on the red dirt. In practical terms, Grabher will try to make this match ugly. She will try to extend rallies, vary the pace, throw in slices and drop shots, and drag Eala into the kind of attritional baseline warfare that the Filipina has historically struggled with. Grabher knows she cannot match Eala's ball speed or depth when both players are hitting clean. So she will not try. She will disrupt. She will frustrate. She will make Eala beat her by doing the hard thing, by sustaining concentration and discipline for 2 full sets on a surface that has tormented her for years. And the crowd will amplify every moment of uncertainty. When Grabher wins a long rally point, the arena will erupt. When Eala misses a forehand long, there will be a collective exhale of relief and encouragement from the Austrian faithful. Every line call will feel weighted. Every challenge will carry an emotional charge. This is what it means to play against a local hero in her home tournament. The margins are not just physical and tactical. They are emotional. There is another dimension to this match that deserves examination, and that is the question of what comes next. If Eala wins, she does not get a moment to breathe. Waiting in the round of 16 is fourth-seeded Jelena Ostapenko, the 2017 French Open champion and one of the most dangerous clay court players in the world. Ostapenko won the Stuttgart Open in 2025, beating Iga Swiatek, Alexandrova, and Aryna Sabalenka in succession. She is a former Linz Open champion. She hits flat, she hits hard, and she goes for broke on virtually every shot. The thought of an Eala Ostapenko second-round clash on indoor clay is enough to make any tennis analyst sit up straight. And here is the remarkable thing. Eala owns a 2-0 head-to-head record against Ostapenko. She beat the Latvian 7-6, 7-5 at the 2025 Miami Open, and then again at Eastbourne, 0-6, 6-2, 6-3. Both of those matches, however, were on hard courts. Facing Ostapenko on clay is a categorically different proposition. The Latvian's heavy flat ground strokes gain even more potency when the ball kicks up off the dirt, and her willingness to go for lines creates a kind of beautiful chaos that is incredibly difficult to defend against when you are not entirely comfortable with the surface beneath your feet. But all of that is theoretical. All of that lives in the future. Right now, the only thing that matters is the woman across the net. Julia Grabher, 29 years old. World number 87. Born in Dornbirn, a small city in western Austria nestled against the Alps. A player who started hitting tennis balls at age 6, who competed in the 2024 Paris Olympics, who has been grinding on the professional tour for years without ever quite breaking through to the elite level. She is the kind of player who fills the middle tier of women's tennis, talented enough to stay on tour, competitive enough to win matches, but lacking the explosive weapons or the physical gifts to consistently trouble the best. And yet, in Linz, in front of her people, on a surface she knows like the back of her hand, Grabher is dangerous. Dismissing her would be the kind of mistake that young players sometimes make. Eala cannot afford to make it. The broader narrative here is about more than one tennis match. It is about a 20-year-old woman from the Philippines carrying the hopes of an entire nation on her racket. When Eala plays, the Philippines stops. Social media lights up. Watch parties form in Manila at ungodly hours. She is not just a tennis player to Filipino fans. She is a symbol of possibility, proof that a country without a deep tennis tradition can produce a world-class athlete. She won the 2022 U.S. Open Junior title and became the first Filipino to ever claim a Junior Grand Slam singles crown. She trained at the Nadal Academy in Mallorca from age 13, graduating in 2023. She has beaten Coco Gauff, Jasmine Paolini, Donna Vekic, and Jelena Ostapenko at the professional level. And she is still only 20 years old. But symbols carry weight, and weight can be heavy. Eala has spoken publicly about the pressure of representing an entire country, about the thousands of messages she receives after every match, about the expectation that follows her everywhere she goes. She handles it with a maturity that belies her age, but the pressure does not disappear simply because you manage it well. It lives in your body. It shows up in tight moments in the third set, when your legs are heavy and your arm is tired and the crowd is screaming for the other player. This is what makes the Linz match so fascinating. It is a collision of narratives. The young prodigy versus the hometown veteran. The hard-court assassin versus the clay-court grinder. The global phenomenon versus the local hero. The future versus the fight to stay relevant. Neither player can afford to lose for entirely different reasons. For Eala, a loss on clay, again, reinforces the narrative that she cannot compete on the surface at the highest level. For Grabher, a loss in front of her own fans, in a tournament she has competed in for 7 years without ever advancing past the first round, would be another chapter in a career defined by near misses and almosts. The indoor clay at Tips Arena adds yet another variable. Indoor clay plays faster than outdoor clay. The ball skids more. The bounce is lower. The conditions reward aggressive baseline play more than traditional outdoor clay, which tends to favor patience and physicality. In theory, this should help Eala. If the surface plays even slightly faster than standard clay, her early ball striking becomes more viable. She can step in, take time away from Grabher, and potentially turn this into something closer to a hard court encounter. But indoor conditions also mean there is no wind, no sun, no external factors to disrupt rhythm. Grabher can settle into her patterns without worrying about gusts or glare. She can find her range and stay in it. The controlled environment is a double-edged sword. One of the most underappreciated aspects of this matchup is the mental battle. Eala has shown remarkable composure in high-pressure situations this season. Her three-set comeback against Diana Yastremska at Indian Wells, saving multiple break points in the deciding set, was the kind of gutsy performance that separates professionals from pretenders. Her ability to withstand the early onslaught from Laura Siegemund at Miami, losing the first set in a tiebreak before storming back to win the next two, demonstrated a resilience that is becoming a defining characteristic of her game. She does not panic. She adjusts. She recalibrates. She finds solutions inside the match, not after it. But clay has a way of exposing mental fragility in ways that hard courts do not. On hard courts, you can hit through doubt. You can serve your way out of trouble. You can overpower uncertainty with clean ball striking. On clay, doubt lingers. Points drag on. Errors accumulate slowly, like sand filling an hourglass. If Eala gets tight, if the crowd gets to her, if she starts pressing for winners instead of building points, the surface will punish her in ways that a hard court never would. So what happens? Honestly, prediction feels almost beside the point. The numbers say Eala wins. The rankings say Eala wins. The form guide says Eala wins. But the surface, the crowd, the occasion, the weight of history, all of these factors introduce enough chaos to make this genuinely unpredictable. And that is exactly why this match matters so much. Because it is not just a tennis match. It is a test. A test of character, of adaptability, of mental fortitude, and of whether a young woman who has already achieved so much can conquer the one obstacle that has consistently defeated her. If Eala walks off that court with a victory, this could be the moment everything changes for her clay court career. A win in Linz, followed by a potential clash with Ostapenko, followed by who knows what, a deep run in this tournament could fundamentally alter the trajectory of her season and establish her as a genuine threat on every surface, not just hard courts. The clay swing stretches ahead: Madrid, Rome, Paris. The French Open. The surface that has haunted her. A win against Grabher would not just be a result. It would be a statement of intent. It would be the first brick in a foundation that could support a completely different narrative about who Alex Eala is as a tennis player. And if she loses? Then the questions multiply. Then the doubts harden. Then the clay court problem becomes the clay court crisis, and the conversation shifts from potential to limitation. The stakes are that stark. The margins are that thin. Somewhere inside the Tips Arena, the court is being prepared. The lines are being swept. The net is being measured. And two women with two very different stories are getting ready to walk out and add another chapter to each. One of them will leave the arena with the kind of victory that changes everything. The other will leave with the kind of loss that keeps you up at night. That is the cruelty and the beauty of professional tennis. There is no middle ground. There is no draw. There is only the court, the ball, and the truth of what happens when the match begins. This is the Linz Open. This is Eala versus Grabher. And nothing about what comes next is guaranteed.